បាទសូមជម្រាបសួរប្រិយមិត្តទូរទស្សនិកជនទាំងអស់ដែលកំពុងតាមដានទស្សនាការផ្សាយរបស់មជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0 បាទសូមស្វាគមន៍មកកាន់កិច្ចសន្ទនាពិសេសដែលមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0 រៀបចំនារសៀលនេះក្រោមប្រធានបទ NFT បាទថ្ងៃនេះគឺខុសពីសមមួយដងដោយសារតែប្រធានបទនៃកិច្ចពិភាក្សាផ្សាយផ្ទាល់របស់យើងនៅពេលនេះគឺមិនដូចគ្នាទៅនឹងប្រធានបទប្រចាំខែរបស់យើងនោះទេបាទអញ្ចឹងកន្លងមកដោយដែលអាដាមលោកជំទាវអស់លោកស្រីប្រិយមិត្តទាំងអស់ដែលជានិច្ចកាលគាំទ្រនិងតាមដានរាល់ការផ្សព្វផ្សាយរបស់មជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0 បានជ្រាបគឺមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0 តែងតែរៀបចំនៅកិច្ចសន្ទនាកម្មវិធីជជែកពីកម្ពុជា 4.0 ដែលផ្ដោតទៅលើប្រធានបទដែលយើងមានជាប្រចាំខែបាទថ្ងៃនេះយើងនឹងមានកិច្ចសន្ទនាពិសេសថ្មីមួយបាទដោយផ្ដោតទៅលើប្រធានបទដែលឡែកមួយដែលខុសពីប្រធានបទចាំខែរបស់យើងបាទគឺ NFT បាទ NFT នេះខ្ញុំបាទអាចសូមបញ្ជាក់ជូនបន្តិចថាគឺតំណាងឲ្យ non fungible token បាទអញ្ចឹងគឺ NFT ជាពាក្យពេញបាទប៉ុន្តែក៏មិនទាន់ជាជំរាបជូនលម្អិតពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹង NFT នេះដែរគឺទុកជូននាទីនេះជូនទៅដល់វាគ្មិនកិត្តិយសរបស់យើងបាទសម្រាប់រសៀលនេះផ្ទាល់មជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0 មានកិត្តិយសដោយទទួលការចូលរួមពីលោកស្រីបណ្ឌិតប៉ាន់នេត្រាបាទដែលលោកស្រីគឺជាសាស្ត្រាចារ្យផ្នែកសហគ្រិនភាពនៅឯ Base Business School បាទខ្ញុំបាទសូមជម្រាបសួរលោកស្រីនេត្រាបាទ
ចាជំរាបសួរអរគុណច្រើនសវណ្ណរដ្ឋជំរាបសួរទាំងអស់គ្នា
បាទខ្ញុំបាទសូមអនុញ្ញាតជម្រាបជូនថាលោកស្រីប៉ានេត្រាទទួលបានបណ្ឌិតបាទសញ្ញាបត្របណ្ឌិតពីខាង École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne បាទពីខាងសាលា Polytechnique ផ្នែកបច្ចេកវិទ្យានៅឯ Lausanne ប្រទេសស្វីសបាទហើយបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះលោកស្រីបាននឹងកំពុងតែបម្រើការងារជាសាស្ត្រាចារ្យបាទបង្រៀនផ្នែកសហគ្រិនភាពនិងបច្ចេកវិទ្យានៅឯសាលា Base Business School នៅឯទីក្រុងឡុងចក្រភពអង់គ្លេសបាទហើយថ្ងៃនេះក៏ជាកិត្តិយសដោយលោកស្រីបានចូលរួមផ្ទាល់ជាមួយយើងខ្ញុំបាទហើយសូមជម្រាបផងដែរថាលោកស្រីប៉ានេត្រាគឺមានជំនាញទៅលើផ្នែកសហគ្រិនភាពទៅលើផ្នែកអ្នកវិនិវត្តន៍បាទហើយលោកស្រីក៏បានចូលរួមច្រើនទៅក្នុងកិច្ចការនៃការស្រាវជ្រាវថាតើការធ្វើពាណិជ្ជកម្មការធ្វើអាជីវកម្មផ្សារភ្ជាប់ជាមួយនឹងស្មារតីអ្នកវិនិវត្តន៍រួមជាមួយនឹងឥទ្ធិពលមកលើសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសង្គមរបស់យើងជារួមទៅលើ social impact នោះតើមានការវិវត្តយ៉ាងណាខ្លះបាទហើយលោកស្រីក៏បានធ្វើការច្រើនជាមួយនឹងធុរកិច្ចថ្មីបាទផ្នែក start up ផងដែរបាទហើយបច្ចុប្បន្នបាទលោកស្រីក៏កំពុងតែបន្តការងារបាទរបស់លោកស្រីដែលខ្ញុំគិតថាបន្តិចទៀតនេះលោកស្រីក៏នឹងជម្រាបជូនបន្ថែមអំពីជីវប្រវត្តិរបស់លោកស្រីផ្ទាល់តែម្ដងបាទថ្ងៃនេះគឺដោយសារតែប្រធានបទរបស់យើងមានលក្ខណៈពិសេសហើយប្រធានបទនេះ NFT នេះគឺទាមទារនៅការប្រើប្រាស់ពាក្យបច្ចេកទេសច្រើនបាទដូច្នេះគឺយើងខ្ញុំសូមការអនុញ្ញាតប្រើប្រាស់ភាសាអង់គ្លេសសម្រាប់កិច្ចសន្ទនារបស់យើងខ្ញុំតែម្ដងបាទសម្រាប់រសៀលនេះបាទហើយសម្រាប់ការឧទ្ទេសនាមរបស់វាគ្មិនរបស់យើងបាទដុកទ័រនេត្រាគឺថាអាដាមលោកជំទាវអស់លោកស្រីដែលជាប្រិយមិត្តទាំងអស់គឺអាចធ្វើការសាកសួរបានបើសិនជាមានជាចម្ងល់ឬក៏ជាសំណួរឬក៏ជាមតិយោបល់ដើម្បីចូលរួមបន្ថែមទៀតគឺសូមអញ្ជើញចូលរួមបាទនៅក្នុងកិច្ចពិភាក្សារបស់យើងនេះដែលអាចធ្វើការ comment នៅក្នុងប្រអប់សាររបស់យើងតែម្ដងបាទហើយជាក់ស្ដែងគឺយើងកំពុងតែធ្វើការផ្សាយផ្ទាល់នៅលើ YouTube channel រួមជាមួយនៅលើ Facebook page របស់មជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0 ផងដែរបាទOkay, so I think we may give the floor to Dr. Netra for her presentation, and actually this is a really new topic to me as well. And personally, I only heard about the word NFT when I saw the news, about Jake Dorsey. You remember last March I saw a news that the first ever tweet of Jake Dorsey was sold for nearly $3 million. That's a huge amount, to buy a tweet. And I remember I asked myself at that time, how come can we also can sell a tweet right now, in our world, So this is something new, really new to the digital sphere, and also to the economy in real, in real as well, So maybe we need to know more about that and how best we could prepare ourselves for the whatever to come, in the NFT related field. So I may give the floor to Dr. Netra to give the presentation on that. And as I mentioned, if you have any comments or questions, or you would like to give feedbacks, please, do not hesitate to do so on the, you can comment, and then we will see what are the main points that we should discuss further with our speaker. Please, Dr. Netra, the floor is yours. Yeah, thank you.
I would like to switch to English because this is quite a technical topic, but feel free, please, to ask me any questions in Khmer, and I'd be happy to also answer. Before I start, I wanted to give a huge thanks to the Cambodia 4.0 Center. I'm so proud and happy that my country has a center like this. This is more than we can say for many other countries around the world who seem to hide from the upcoming impacts of technology. And the truth is that we can't hide from it. So all we can do is try to educate ourselves, educate each other, and prepare ourselves as best we can. So I'm very thankful for the invitation from Bang Nimul and for the leadership of Bang Patien Hunmani, and for your invitation also to Savandrat today. So I want to start today by giving a little bit of introduction about myself, and excuse my dog in the background. Just because I know that this sounds like a very strange field, and Savandrat said that Jack Dorsey sold this tweet for millions of dollars, which sounds very strange. And so I don't know who is watching right now, but it might seem very odd and out of reach. So I just want to start a little bit with my background, so you know that I grew up in Sakmai. I went to ISPP, and I studied, as Savandrat said, in New York, in Paris, and in Switzerland, where I earned my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate. And along the way, I had the great privilege to work with many different startups and companies during my studies. And as Savandrat said, now I teach entrepreneurship and purpose-driven innovation at Bayes Business School in London, formerly known as Cass Business School. How did I get into blockchain technology and Web 3.0, actually? Since I started off very interested in social innovation and how to use companies and businesses to actually deliver the essential goods and services that make our lives better and safer and more fun. How did I move from social innovation to blockchain technology and what you'll see I call the industry of Web 3.0? So I started off in my work being invited to be a judge or mentor at different startup competitions, including Seed Stars, Hello Tomorrow, Mass Challenge. These are international startup competitions and accelerator programs. And this put me in touch with a lot of different startups, in addition to the startups that my own students had the chance to create in the classroom. And so I started actually eventually advising different blockchain ventures, such as Sarcophagus.io. So you can check it at sarcophagus.io. They're a venture that works with data management and encryption, with really interesting applications in terms of families who create wills and want the will to be safeguarded by multiple children and not just one person. You can think about the benefit of having a digital version compared to a paper version in case something happens to extremely important data. But you can also think, in the case of Web 3.0, the benefit of having a shared document. And I don't mean shared by Google Docs or by Dropbox. I mean that the ownership and the integrity of the document is shared so that no one person can actually change it without the input of the other owners, equal owners of that digital asset. So we can go a little bit more into the technical aspects of that later on. It's actually a venture that I also had the opportunity to learn a lot from. Another venture that I was an advisor, that I'm still an advisor to, is a venture called Ariani. They are a luxury and digital experience and asset management venture. They create digital passports for luxury goods that give users access to incredible experiences, but also give brands knowledge of who their customer base is while respecting the user's privacy. You may know from the documentary Social Dilemma, which is on Netflix, that companies like Facebook, Twitter use, copy, save a lot of our personal data. And many times we actually don't get too much in return. So I think this is a really exciting innovation that protects user data. Let me go through a couple more things. I want to take this opportunity to share as much as possible so that we can maybe use these as future conversation points later on. I hope that this is only the beginning of our conversation. So let me go a little bit more into the other points. I started getting excited about blockchain technology, what we now call crypto, even though we are really talking about the broader infrastructure of blockchain, when I started collecting digital art and collectibles in 2021, January 2021. So digital art, you might all be aware of. It's art that's created on your computer. Cambodians are so good at Photoshop and all of these things. And collectibles. So collectibles, you need to think about these like Pokemon cards or like a rare 1,000 real bill. These are rare items that have a lot of value. And even though they're not so special, because what can you do with a very old 1,000 real bill? You might not even be able to spend it. It has value because it's a rare one that has survived, or maybe it's the only one that exists today. And so I started collecting these digital arts and collectibles, and I had the pleasure and luck of collecting what is called a Bored Ape from Bored Ape Yacht Club. You can see the logo on the right, the circle there. They're creating great brand experiences now, partnering with companies like Adidas. I also collected art on on platforms called artblocks.io, Zora.io, and OpenSea.io. And eventually I started creating my own digital art to sell, to share kind of the story of my ancestors who went through the Khmer Rouge as well. And separate from the art, I also used what we call decentralized financial services. So these decentralized financial services include companies or what we call decentralized autonomous organizations like Aave or Maker. And the key differentiator between using Aave versus, let's say, using a bank called like ABA, for example, is that these decentralized financial services really seek to eliminate the need for human activity and human error. So we really avoid these issues like human mistakes or human influence. And instead, it's all digital and all online and all voted on a commonly owned protocol. Well, we can go a little bit into that also later, but I'll just close up to say that I've also been involved in community-led social clubs like Friends with Benefits, which sounds like a funny name, but honestly, it's just a peer-to-peer entrepreneurship and creative entrepreneurship support group. And they use tokens to control the governance of that organization. And when you join as a member, you actually also join as a co-owner who can vote on decisions. So most recently, the community voted on accepting investment from a famous VC called A16Z. And this was exciting because we got to actually be involved in the decision. All right, so that's a little bit about me and about how I got into Web3. I'm thinking, Savandrat, I can start off very briefly about introducing Web3 and then welcome some of your questions. How does that sound?
Yes, that's okay. Yeah, please.
Wonderful. And feel free, please, to stop me, Savandrat. I know you're probably looking at the comments. In case there are any comments or anything that I need to repeat, please let me know. Okay. So, okay, wonderful. Is there anything?
No, it's okay. I will look after the comment section. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So I want to talk to you today to give you a short introduction to non-fungible tokens or NFTs and why they matter. I think the key thing that you need to take away from NFTs is not the big crazy numbers as Savandrat cited at the beginning, but rather that NFTs are a type of digital asset. So in many countries around the world, digital assets and currencies are heavily regulated. What we need to understand is that NFTs are not like money. They're more like media or files. They can be documents, they can be audio clips. And the key thing is that they are non-fungible and unique. So remember the 1,000 real bill that I mentioned before. This 1,000 real bill is the only one in this case that exists. In that way, that is why we call it non-fungible. Now, before I go into a little bit about NFTs and the industry behind it, the development there, I want to also zoom out just a tiny bit and explain why this matters to us. So first of all, we need to care about this because this is a real phenomenon. As I was discussing with Savandrat before the session, we cannot ignore the fact that the ownership certificate of each of these monkeys that you see, these apes, is so valuable that it reaches these amounts. Now, in this case, these bored apes are considered rare because they're only 10,000. And within the 10,000, there are only some apes that don't have clothes, or there are only some apes with pink hair. And so this has created a new market that is in many senses similar to fashion and similar to gaming, where the value of this digital asset goes up immensely. Another key milestone from last year relates to an artist called Mike Winkelmann. Mike Winkelmann today is the highest paid artist alive. He sold this work that you see here, which is a collection of 5,000 different art pieces that he made himself, all in one canvas. And this digital piece sold for $69 million. Now, he actually didn't get all of that $69 million. He sold it to someone and that person sold it on. But still, he's probably the best known digital artist today in this sphere. And we can guess a little bit about why this happened and why this happened last year. Unfortunately, I'm doing this talk with you via YouTube and Zoom and Facebook Live. So this shows the importance now of digital interactions. And this was a way for art collectors to continue collecting a new type of art using the infrastructure that we have today, the digital infrastructure. Another type of art that was sold also appears very gimmicky. So this is an art piece sold by Banksy that was then destroyed, but this actually increased the value of the NFT that was associated with this art piece. It increased the value of the digital certificate that was associated with this art piece. So the reason why I share all of these crazy numbers is because as Savanrath mentioned before, we're dealing with these large numbers. And so it makes it easy to think that NFTs might be simply what we call a hype. So a big deal with nothing behind. And so I want to share this graph with you because what I think is important to understand is the fact that hype is expectations that are greater than reality. And that is the case for any new innovation, as the reality needs to catch up. So this graph here on the left-hand side shows all of the different types of technologies that follow what we call the hype cycle, which means that at the beginning, we don't think much of the technology. We think it's a bad technology. We think that it's not going to affect our daily life. But then over time, we start to think, oh, NFTs can be used for different things, can be used for art, can be used for luxury, can be used for other cultural industries. And when people try to actually apply that art, that NFT to art, we actually get to see some mistakes or some places where the NFT is not as good as what was there before. And so this creates what we call a trough of disillusionment. So we actually get upset, the expectations go down. And this is actually extremely normal and often leads to finally what we call a slope of enlightenment and then a plateau of productivity. And this productivity means that we actually understand what NFTs are. We actually understand how they can be used for, and we understand how they can be built. So just to put this into context, we all use Word documents. We can use Microsoft Word .doc. We can use a Mac version. We can use Google Docs. We can use OpenOffice. It's still a Word document or a text document, let's say. NFTs are similar. It's simply a type of file, and we can still build it many different ways. And we're still in that process right now. So I would say that we're nearing the peak, would be my perspective for NFTs, but it's really important for us to understand it now, even if we have some disappointments later on, because this type of technology has already proven to have several key and exciting uses. And I'll show you a few of those. So as I mentioned before, segments within the art industry are already benefiting from non-fungible tokens, and practitioners are experimenting. And for example, I have benefited from as an artist and as a collector. NFT technologies have been around several years, since 2011, 3 years after the Bitcoin white paper, and they've been used successfully in collectibles in 2008 to 2020 to today. For example, this is from August 2020. Paris Hilton auctioned off an NFT for charity. It's a stupid, very simple cat picture. And this NFT actually allowed the proceeds to go to charity. But for example, the company that I advise called Ariani, they've been working with a luxury company called Breitling. And now every single watch that you buy with Breitling will come with an NFT digital passport, which looks at Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and Web 3.0. NFTs and crypto and blockchain technology are a key part of what we call Web 3.0. So I'll show you a little bit what I mean about that first. But essentially, maybe many of you are old enough to remember how it was to use the internet when it first started. You had your username and your password, and you could connect to a website. The website was often still static. The website was often populated by images, text, and content created by one company, the company that created that website. Today, with Web 2.0, we use apps and websites on our phone. We have access to really complex and high definition media. And we often use one of these platforms' accounts to sign in. We can sign in with Google, we can sign in with Facebook, we can sign in with Twitter, to all sorts of different companies. And in Web 2.0, the platform is actually the one who wins. In Web3, we have a different situation. Google no longer owns our ID. Facebook no longer needs to own our account information, and neither does Twitter. With Web3, the idea is that the NFT or whatever identifying information we have about ourselves all resides in our blockchain wallet, which we own by ourselves. Now, I think for a country like Cambodia, but also like many other countries, this is very exciting because if we look at what we call big tech, which are the companies of Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Apple, all around the world, developed countries criticize the overarching influence of these companies. As I mentioned before, a documentary to watch is The Social Dilemma on Netflix, which shows just how much data all of these companies have on us and how much knowledge they have about our behavior that can influence what we buy, who we talk to, and how much we are on our phones. I know that I have the trouble of being very often on our phones. And so what gets people really excited about Web3 is this idea of getting access to all the same benefits that Google, Facebook, Twitter, and other companies give us, because these companies definitely do provide products and services that make our lives better, but in a way that protects our data. So this is a lot of information. Let me walk you through it one by one. In Web 1, what do you see? You usually see static websites, so websites that are still. Who creates it? Usually one company. What is being sold? Usually a one-time purchase of a physical asset on a public infrastructure. So this means you might buy some dog food, or you might buy a shirt or food, and you usually would buy it once. What challenges did users face in the past? Slow speeds. What hardware did we use in the past? Usually we look at this on our desktop computer, and the information that we were looking at came from that one company and that one company's servers. In the past, you would log in with one account, and if you forgot your password, you would ask that one company to help you. The data would be owned by the company creating the content, and the biggest winner in Web 1.0, so let's say about 20 years ago, would be the central organization. So if you work for that company that has a great website, that company wins, meaning that they create a lot of profit, and the people who work for that company, let's say America Online, AOL, they would be successful, and the employees at that company would also be successful because they would have a job in the long term. Now, switch to Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is what we have today. When you look online, what do you see? You see dynamic websites. This means that things are changing. When you go onto Facebook, the data is changing all the time. There's always new information on Instagram whenever you refresh. Who creates it? Facebook and Instagram do not create a lot of content. We are the ones who create it when we take a picture of our food, when we check in at a place, or when we write our status update. What is being sold? Sometimes we have access to free things like on Facebook and Instagram, and ads are sold. So ads are sold to companies, but we can also look, for example, at Netflix. Netflix offers a subscription to an unlimited digital asset on a private platform. You pay one fee per month and you get access to everything. What challenges do users face? A lack of control over personal data and viewership. What hardware does it use? Data is usually viewed on mobile phones sent from outsourced servers, for example, Amazon Web Services. How do you log in? You can log in through that one platform's account, and as you can see, you can also use that account for multiple websites. But this is the key part. who owns the data? Even though it's a picture of our ktiu or our milkshake or latte, that picture is owned by Facebook and by Instagram. When we take a good picture, it gets many likes and many shares, and that is our payment. 100 likes, 1,000 likes, 1,000 shares. We don't own that information, and we don't get paid. We don't own the revenue from our digital asset, from our data. And so the biggest winner are these platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. Well, actually, Facebook and Instagram are one company. Now let's move to Web 3.0. So to be clear, Web 3.0 doesn't fully exist yet. We are still somewhat between Web 2 and Web 3. But the goal and what we see happening already with many different types of companies is to have dynamic websites and 3D spaces. The users still create the content, and what is being sold are digital assets with utility, meaning it gives you benefits in physical worlds and virtual worlds. So let's go back to the pictures of the monkeys. I don't know if you remember the apes that I showed earlier. With that ape, I can log in using the data from that ape, special clubs, special chat rooms, special websites where only people who have that membership can actually access. Think about the company Ariani. They give an NFT or a digital passport to an owner, let's say, for example, of an Hermes bag. So I don't have to walk around with an Hermes bag, an Hermes handbag, to get access to certain things. And I don't have to give my name, my address, my phone number, my email to get access to certain things. They know, oh, I like this brand and I actually own the bag. I don't own a copy of the bag. I actually own the bag. And therefore, I get access to better service at stores. I also get access to special online spaces. Now, Hermes hasn't done this yet, but many brands are starting to do so. As I mentioned before, Adidas has started doing so with Bored Ape. Now, what challenges do users face? I have to admit that using crypto and using blockchain ventures is still hard. It's not easy to use yet. And the fact that we own our own ID information means that if I forget my password, I cannot ask Google or Facebook to refresh, to send me a new password. If I lose my password to my wallet, that's it, it's gone. And that's a good thing because it means that no one can steal it. The company cannot decide that they don't like you or that that you violated some terms and delete all of your data. That's a good thing, but it also represents a challenge because digital literacy is not yet widespread and crypto literacy is still less widespread. Now, what hardware does it use? This will be really exciting for any developers or engineers that are listening. While in the past, we could use outsourced servers like Amazon Web Servers, this still represents what we call a centralized solution, meaning that if for some reason Jeff Bezos gets all of his assets confiscated and Amazon goes down, then we've lost all our data. As a small business owner relying on Amazon Web Services, it's still a central place. Now, Amazon Web Services will tell you, oh no, we have copies of your data in many places, so don't worry. And that's probably true. But the key part is that it all is in a centralized place. So if for some reason they cancel your account or you don't pay or you miss a payment, that data is gone. And the app, the website that runs from that server also doesn't work. What's really exciting about peer-to-peer networks in blockchain, and I'm not talking about the financial component, I'm simply talking about the digital infrastructure, is that this is a peer-to-peer autonomous network that will run forever. So you can put your software on it and people will be incentivized to maintain the servers. And they do this by mining and by getting a reward from the mining. Now we can go into those technical issues later. I wanted to just finish up here. How do you log in a non-custodial wallet? Here, non-custodial means that you have custody of the wallet, you own the wallet, and then who owns the data? The user. And what's really exciting about Web3 is that the biggest winner might be not Facebook, Amazon, and so forth, making Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world, but actually all of us who use that platform and all of us who create value for that platform. So I'll stop there. I have a few more facts to share, but I'd love to hear from you.
ដើម្បីទទួលបានព័ត៌មានថ្មីៗអំពីបច្ចេកវិទ្យានិងការអភិវឌ្ឍសេដ្ឋកិច្ច Digital នៅកម្ពុជាសូមចូលទៅ join Telegram Channel របស់មជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកម្ពុជា 4.0